So here we are at the center of the universe, the Lama Foundation, 1990 years after Jesus Christ left the foundation. He didn't get consensus that year. And since then we've built some new buildings. We're looking at the dome through the old pinon tree and the wall in front of the kitchen. The dome is in the process of being redone. Plaster on the outside and new roof. So it has this concrete glow to it, but hopefully by the end of this summer it'll be brown again, back to looking like adobe. In the old days when it was adobe and the vigas were sticking out and the firehouse had a flat roof, are long since gone. So we'll just walk down to the dome, go through the vortex of reggae in the kitchen and Stu Baba's saxophone in the dome. The rocky paths that are a challenge for any videotaper. And people trying to get 200 plates down to the dishes in the middle of a Ram Dass camp when there's rain coming down like cats and dogs. It gets swept, once a week, but
cleans the
still doesn't
navel
it?
fuzz
1, 2,
out
3,
of the
4, 5,
mandala.
6, 7, 8. The eight-sided, the eight-spoked wheel, the Buddhist Dharma. The birds are calling and singing to Stu. Shot Stu against the window. Here we have the doors that Bob Johnson always wanted to make, and Harry finally did.
Right.
There's lots of books trying to meditate in here. They finally have little numbers on their binders. Card catalog. This winter, Bella was channeling Dewey down here. Someone from the seed conference came in a couple weeks ago. This was an old guy who had been in the Navy, and he's looking through. Oh yeah, yeah, yep. Ah, there it is. Oh, the section on alchemy doesn't have enough in it. Yep, there it is. It was so great. Patter of little hammers in the back wall.
Snow peaks in the distance.
Scratchy windows in the foreground. Here we are in the new room. The new walls, new mudded walls, new roof and skylight, and window seat. Once the only room, a place where, as Asha said, everybody did everything. Healthy apricot tree right in the corner of the dome. Nataraj.
short but potent history. But, you know, we're doing our best.
Here you can see the process of structulighting, covering
It's
up
not
the old
structulite.
mud with insulation and tar paper and chicken wire, and then concrete on top of that. What's it called?
It's just called hard plaster
Hard
or
plaster.
cement plaster.
Cement plaster. The building may last another 50, 60 years at this rate.
Unless we get too tired and there isn't enough chai, then it's only going to last.
Keep
15
that
years.
chai coming.
Chaiwala! Where's the treats? We come over into the wash house.
Well,
Hi, Lyle.
hello there.
Where's that Matthew?
Matthew.
What you doing? Washing some underwear?
No.
Some beautiful flowers from Marianne.
Don't worry, be happy.
Wanda? Yeah? Would you mind if we just take a shot at the nursery from outside here? It wouldn't suit the bathtub. The nursery part was added on as part of the dome preservation project. Knocking out the wall that was there and putting the glass on, and we've been growing herbs and chard in there ever since, and it's a really nice space, and especially in the winter after taking a shower, to sit in there, be warm, and hang out with the greenery.
And it's the old blue tiled bath shower.
Sometimes a hot tub, but very rarely.
When water is in abundance.
Mm-hmm. The hippo,
Yes, the old hippo.
reborn with a new face.
Strange the names that stick, Lama.
Mm-hmm.
The car wash, the hippo.
The new room, the firehouse. There's our mayor. Mayor of Lamaville.
He's been mayor, what, a good 20 years
Yeah.
now.
He just keeps smiling, you know, he's a good mayor.
He
Doesn't
doesn't
give anybody a
worry,
hard time.
he's always happy.
Exactly.
By doing nothing, everything happens.
A good bean always turns off a leaking faucet. A well-trained bean.
A dripping faucet we can handle, the leaky ones usually keep leaking for a while. Here we are coming back to the firehouse, so-called, although the fireplace that used to be right here is no longer here. So it's a clear view from the kitchen to the dome through here. It's got nice new mudded walls and everything too. And some people want to call it the foyer, some people like to call it the entryway.
Some people like to call it the lost and found.
The lost and found house. The shoe room, the mud room.
That's an inimitable Lama experience. Thank you, thank you. right,
Back up
emerging
towards the kitchen.
from the firehouse and the dome complex.
You can hear the sound of the generator from here. Probably somebody's ironing. And the solar panels up there on top of the car wash building. The solar panels still aren't quite strong enough to keep the iron going for extended periods of time. But in general, they supply all the electrical needs. The serving tables and the blackboard, bells. Here's the ridge and Flag Mountain, the high peak up there at 12,000 feet. And the oaks and aspens you can see starting to green up. Flag Mountain Studio, under its namesake. Looking down into the gully and the garden, the double deer fence around. After having an 8-foot fence, we found that deer can jump over an 8-foot fence, but they can't jump far. So the double fences keep them from getting in. Here's our sweat lodges. One was built by a Blackfeet Indian, this one over here, Buster Yellow Kidney when he came, and Andy Bartson built the other one. And we've had some Indians here, and we've had some good old Anglo sweats as well. Here's the sauna, wood stove to heat up a little room in there, and it's gone through a few fires and lots of prayers and lots of people sweating and purifying and diving in the snow or in the pond afterwards. Here we are at the solar showers. Polar showers actually been more accurate for most of its life. After the first two people get a hot one, the rest of them get ice cold.
But it's aesthetic.
Finally broke down and put a water heater in here.
They did. How about that? Whoop. Yes. I'll verify that. All right.
Ablution is complete. Here we are up on the infamous balcony from Flag Mountain, looking up to the south. Circle garden. Nice view of Lama, central, uninvolved, peaceful. The silkscreen studio. Cat-proof shield for the flags. Finished ones. Nice new C-clamps for the old-fashioned design. Maybe we'll be seeing these in a couple years. Anymore. Beautiful but completely unfunctional stove. Actually, in the winter, it's nice to work in here in the afternoon because the sun comes in and warms the place up. And you don't even need the stove.
Right.
But you got to be careful from getting your paints dried out in the sun. It's amazing that this little place can bring in $50,000 a year gross.
How it's putting out a good product.
Yeah. Lots of sacred symbols. Kind of a mysterious looking picture of worship there. Here's a view of the sauna from below, with its two eyes and mouth that eats tons of wood. You can pan over to the fence and the pool. Here's the fence that surrounds our little pond that was put up to keep the kids from going in and falling in the pool accidentally. Pretty soon we'll have it all full and people will be able to come down here and bathe instead of having to take a shower. This is looking up at the Rose, the name of a house, because of the shape of the window. In the winter, skunks love to go under there and live. Make it more difficult for the people inside. But it's a nice sized house. inside the rose now, looking out into the gully through the windows. Julie's humble abode. As most houses in Lama probably had many, many different residents through the years, living here in different ways and doing different things. Most of them trying to keep warm during the winter. This is the wood pile of the rose after the winter is over, and you can see some pieces are left behind because they're just simply unsplittable. Not much you can do with this thing in an axe, really. Hi, this is the Pond Dome, place where many people have had close encounters with one teacher or another. Darshans and Merchant Sam stayed here, Ram Das, Bhante, and residents. It's a great house for the summertime because it's so cool here in the shade and near the pond. When Joseph was living here, he'd have little parties and bring out his big bass, and you could hear it from all over the land sometimes, Joseph playing his stand-up bass here. This is the Lama Spring, and a beautiful house built by Tomas and stone masonry workshop. And it's just an incredible spring. The water flows year-round. And last summer when the Tibetan monks were up here, they came up and did a ritual to bless the place and to call on the Nagas, which is their word for devas, or nature spirits, the water spirits, for them to be nurtured and taken care of up here, as they take so much good care of us. In the aspen grove above the spring house that was cleared away as part of the process of finding the spring originally, now has just become a sacred aspen grove. The stonework was done with much attention to detail and balance and beauty. One of the guardians. The spring house is so full it's overflowing this spring. And this is a very good place to come and pray and to give thanks for all the blessings of our life here at Lama. And as I open the door, I noticed one of Susan Keen's little sayings I'd like to read. For indeed, by loving myself amiss, I lost myself, and by seeking thee alone, and purely loving thee, I have found both myself and thee, and by that love have more deeply reduced myself to nothing. By Kempis. Here we are right in the midst of the aspen grove, and if you look closely on the ground you can see some prayer arrows that were made a few years ago, and prayers were put in as we wrapped the arrows with yarn and stuck them in the ground there. And this is definitely a place where you can feel the power of life in the ground rising up through these aspen trees, and the intense beauty of the trunks of the trees and the green leaves blowing in the wind and the blue sky is often a place of inspiration for people who come here. This is the path that goes down from the spring house to the reservoir, and it's like going through the cathedral sometimes. The trees leaning over on the sides. Now you can see the redwood tank, which is a smaller reservoir, and it's connected to a larger one that was just redone last year, 20,000 gallon tank. And these two tanks hold the water that comes from the spring house and serve up to 200 people at a time. And the teepee circle, which Asha says was one of the first places that was set up for people to stay on, and we have our tuning here usually all summer, and the half moon is an altar from the Native American church meeting that was held here this spring. Prayers were made all night long to bless the land and all the people that were coming up here this summer. Well, this used to be the kids' playhouse my first couple years here, and then last year Susan Keene, the woman who puts the little sayings around, bought some material and converted it into a small kuti for people who like to do Hindu chanting and prayers. Jai Maharaj is one of our great grandfathers, holding the light for stability and beauty.
The needles just catch the light.
This is the path from the kitchen over to the ISC. Probably the most trodden path on the land. As we come up to these flags, there's the history of the holy wars here, the time when people that were doing the Islamic practice in the ISC were separated from the rest of Lama, and there was a fence and everything, and now we've taken the fence down and all that's left is these flags to mark the history in a different way. Nestled in the pines, our ISC remains a jewel in the heart of Lama. A place for people to come and practice and have a place where the buildings remind us of the presence of God. From inside one of the rooms, you can see the center, the garden at the center. You get the feeling for the simplicity of the space, the flowers and the kerosene lamps. And coming out, seeing a bit of the circularity of the outside section with 6 rooms on each side of the tunnel. 12 rooms in all. The dome is the heart of the building, and then the kitchen on the other side of that. And this is the tunnel that separates the two sections of the rooms and goes up towards the center garden in the dome and is aligned with the winter solstice, the sun at the sunset at the winter solstice. And from here on up to the maqbara. Now we're looking north, and another grandfathered ponderosa guarding over the ISC, and one growing up from the center of the building. The little rooms opening up onto the grass, and then the kitchen, or the ISC main as we call it. A little Buddha garden in the courtyard. The entrances to the rooms. Allah. Room 3, the ISC. The kitchen at the ISC under major construction. Hopefully to be able to serve the camps that will be here with greater ease, and everyone will feel good about working over here. These little steps, this space is known as the horseshoe, which is the cap, the lid of the crucible, which this room represents. The ISC as a alchemical design.
Let's see, how are we doing?
Carefully. This little nook has been used for Islamic prayers, and there's still a prayer rug in there that we try to maintain consciousness of, even though there's no one here who's actually practicing Islam right now. And now we're looking at the inside of the prayer dome, a place full of history, finally completed 3 years ago, and since then many different things have been happening in here, from Aikido to fall meeting. Stu, the saxophone player, calls it the rule of truth, because when you play in here, if it's good, it's really good, and if you miss a note, you can really tell. Yeah, it's just been a great place also for singing, some chanting, or when Sadi has done the voice classes in here, helps people to feel the resonance of the voice. And back to downtown Lama. The pavilion, with the roof needing repairs, but still a great shady spot for gatherings in the summer camps. The famous double outhouse overlooking the mesa. Sometimes, one time, Ram Dass was in there and he didn't latch the door, and some woman walks in and she saw him and shrieked, and he said, "What's the matter? Haven't you ever seen a man on the take a shit before?" And hopefully it'll be easier to move this year, because we're moving it back down the slope. 4 years ago we had to pull it up. Took 20 people and ropes and runners to get it up. This is our main woodpile area. Last winter we used about 5 cords for just the kitchen. The Lamasery and the office and the garage up above. This is the Lamasery where all the old Lamas live. They usually only come out once or twice a year and sell toothbrushes and prayer flags and flashlights and jewelry to the retreatants who come up here. People don't even recognize that the person is actually an ancient Tibetan Lama, because it looks just like any other Lama being. This is the garage where some people never go and others seem to find themselves trapped here for most of the year, under cars or cleaning up, and still you can find a touch of beauty and art even amidst the mess. The Dewdrop Inn, place of lots of winter work, but for now we can be happy that we're standing on the outside with the reminder to be here now, to remember. Anyone who's ever been to Lama Foundation would instantly recognize this view of the Lama kitchen. It's an incredible place to work and learn about service.
Tonight?
And also the community kitchen, especially in the winter where people come and
So it'd have to be kind of late.
hang out and stay warm.
8-ish.
We can check in. I'll check it
A place that gets messed up and cleaned up
That'd be good. I could use
probably thousands of times a year.
one too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Do you have oil? I don't have any oil. Yeah?
as the spiritual teachers say, begin where you are. And this was a place that a lot of us began our spiritual quest. And for me, it was one winter day walking up and coming up and feeling at home when I saw the buildings, and it was a warm winter day and people were eating lunch on Outlaw's Corner. And I came back the next summer, found myself living here for 4.5 years. And this spiritual home for me is a place that many people also call their spiritual home, even though at any one time there may only be a handful of people living here. May this place live on through the 90s and into the 21st century to be a heart home for new generations of people discovering what the spiritual life is and putting it into practice. The wind in the trees, the clouds, and the birds flying around will always be here, as will our spirit, our souls.
we simply, there were several of us members, and we simply went to the houses of the various trustees and talked with them. David Padua was one, Michelle at Bodhi Mandala was another, because we didn't know what to do, and we were seeking advice. So we went on a pilgrimage to the trustees. In that case, they served a very valuable function. So it is ambiguous.
Yeah, I agree. I tried during winter to dissuade David, asked him to do all sorts of other kinds of work on this problem. And I respect his decision. What it's done for me is bring up, I'd like to just share with you a number of observations. One is that my frustrations with Lama when I lived here continue to this day. And I tend to have a similar attitude that Beth has, and that is with communication and speak. And it isn't heard at all necessarily in the same way your intention is. And so I had a frustration with David. And I really wanted him to grapple with this and break through, which he isn't going to do, and that's fine. So that's one observation. Another observation is, as chairman of the board, is this the function of the chairman? And I suppose it is to deal with these sort of nebulous, larger issues. That's the second observation. The third observation would be that David's issue is really indicative of some very deep feelings here. Notably, the ongoing conflict, but I think it's become much realer because it's being engaged between the feminine and the masculine. And what is that power as it switches back and forth? What is the power in each of those realms, and how does that interact? How many observations is that? And the fifth observation in relation to that is that I sense a subtle shift from the feminine, which has been possibly the last 4 years, into the masculine. The masculine, when it makes that shift, it's not a lateral shift, it's a reconciling and upward shift. That's purely subjective. But David's actions and his decisions have forced me to make these observations. What is this and why am I engaged in this? I just share it with you. I do hope that I personally would continue to urge you to engage yourself in this issue towards some reconciliation or for yourself. Because I sense there's a very personal, and we've discussed this, a very personal level with this that hasn't really been fully, that door hasn't been fully opened and fully addressed. So it's been interesting. There's been a lot of levels, because I tend to look at the world in levels that have been activated by the decision. It's been very good. But I don't want to finish. Part of me doesn't want to finish because I don't think it's finished. I just don't feel it's finished. Either for the foundation or for me personally.
I couldn't agree more.
I want to address level 4 and 5 just because it's a burning issue and it's not as parenthetical. And it deals with our historical almost 23-year tendency to break Lama mountain into feminine, male energy and female energy and masculine and feminine. And I realized that basically I think the mountain is neither feminine nor masculine, it's a mountain. And I think that the place in which we hit our core and where we all want to be is neither masculine nor feminine, it's human, human. And I feel that as a beginning of a new vocabulary on the planet, because we know man patriarchy, here certainly we know it in patriarchy, and when I hear us talk about the feminine element, somehow I feel like I was just talking to Olan, we need to have a man dance, like a rain dance to bring the rain. We need a man dance, and we can't have a man dance until we can call something better in than the man and the man. And we can bring forth something better than just a woman and a woman. And that perhaps we could talk about this element that we're talking about, not in terms of the masculine coming to the feminine coming to the masculine, but the mind-heart. That what we're about is the mind-heart, and that when you start going to one of those levels or the other, recognize it as another archetype in yourself. But as long as we have our vaginas and our penises and our breasts involved in this discussion, which is basically going through our whole psyches too, but it's a deep archetype that none of us will ever get rid of. As long as we're focusing on the differences, which are legion, right? I mean, sometimes seem special even. It's not going to work here, because the snake will be dancing with it on some level. And basically what we're trying to do is get that snake from the sky into the earth in balance with it. So I would like to make a request that as a philosophical base, that we start using the term mind-heart and how far we are from the center of our mind-heart. Right? And maybe there's an English word we could find better than mind-heart, but it's a concept I think that most of us who study religion understand, right? That they're not really separate in our experience. And somehow make a commitment to stop going back and forth on this pendulum. Because I've seen it going on for 20 years, and all of us have been engaged in it in so many different ways. And I don't see any way to get over it besides transcending it. Anyway, that's the end of it.
Besides what?
Transcending it. Yeah. Not in our lives. I mean, fucking is really fun. Marrying is fun. Having babies is essential. But I mean in the place where we are trapped. The place about which everyone has spoken about. This is special. It has to do with it. It's safe to be here. Not because we're men, not because we're women, but because we're human. And that's also my answer to your statement about it's safe for, David was saying, it's safe for women here. You're thinking about, well, who cares if the men don't care about it being safe, they care about it being real a lot more, how to make it real for them.
I'm going to get drawn into this, I guess, because safety, you said insurance about safety, did you say that?
You said.
No, you just said.
Well, I didn't mean to say it because I don't know what safety is. I use safety as an, I mean, I leaned over there, I can't remember what I said. But I don't feel this, I think the safety factor is essential, and I think it's probably more here than anywhere for anyone. But I feel an urge for an urgency for a deeper commitment on our part besides this pendulum swinging that goes on. And one of the things I feel is that the pendulum swinging has always been femininity of the mountain. So I just basically want to make my statement, the mountain is not feminine, it's a mountain. And English, one of the things about English is that we don't have gender with our nouns, right? And we don't have to.
Actually, before you speak, I just want to tell you that it's 12:30. And,
Well, can I ask you, this is kind of decisions that I'm
Hearing that ended up intuitively, affecting your ability to function as a trustee in the situation. And, one of the dangers that I've seen here, and that's been part of the problem with group dynamics, is this kind of self-congratulatory, insulated way that people can get stuck in the Lama is being Lama. And for good and for bad. Sometimes it's really for good because you do know there is something that happens. And yet the trustees function in a way as almost mythological figures. I mean, most of the people that I know that have been chosen as trustees have invested in them. It's because people value who they are without necessarily their skills being what they give. I mean, their skills are part of what they give, but it's because there's this intuitive trust in their beingness and how they share their beingness and how they share a larger sense of guidance to the foundation. And so the skills enter into how you create your beingness and how you share that guidance is basically how I see the trustees functioning. And that can be from anybody almost. And that's why there is, not from anybody, but from people who have been through a lot of transformatory work, who have a larger sense of guidance, who've been involved in spiritual work in one way or the other that can give a larger viewpoint. And so I guess all I want to say
have had, no one escapes it, but to reach a transformative place where gender is not included. There is no male, female, if you can manage to hit that tiny spot of the big truth. That's not male or female.
Well, I agree with that, Pat. And I accept what Shereen was saying about this vacillation between energies. And I can accept it because I can play my own unbounded side. And one reason for that, a major reason, is having this connection with Lama. Because the safety that I'm calling safety for women is also, in fact, the safety of the feminine. And for me to be here and not have to be that stereotype white male figure, either in my heart or resisting it, coming from other people. I don't have to do that here. But there's this, I agree with Shereen, there's this feeling of the male, and each of us carries that. All of us in this room carry that male side. And my own sense is that the male is not entirely safe here because that strong male energy is not being held accountable.
It's not what?
Being held accountable. That strong male energy, that when it comes out, it's reacted against so strongly and so quickly. And it's a reaction, it's not accountability. So that there's a tendency to suppress it in all of us. And I've seen women come out with it here strongly, and they're not held accountable. It's like everyone backs off and treats it as hysteria or something, neurosis. And it's reacted against, but it's not being held accountable in a supportive way. It's not being treated with respect. And we're so mixed up about this, like this male ego stuff. All of us have egos. But the strongest kind of male energy, if it's seen as male ego, it's a problem. Because that focused visionary energy is a resource. It's so important. And if all we can do is react against it, we haven't dealt with it yet. So we're still safe, but there's something missing. And I feel it's missing in myself. And I'm a little nervous right now because I'm talking in that strong way. And I hear this male voice. And I can feel in this room memories of strong male voices and the pain associated with that. And I realize that there's this risk of withdrawing from what I'm saying just for that reason. And I don't know what to do with that.
Deep inner level, I guess I've always felt that it was safe. On some kind of spiritual level, but I never felt. I mean, I remember my last couple of years as coordinator. I would be driving back up here from Albuquerque, and as I came up the gorge, I could just sort of feel this anxiety, this level of anxiety. I'm wondering about the word safety because certainly when I was here, Stephen was a very unsafe person to be around, and a strong, outwardly male, egotistical, crusading energy. Here. And it has its pluses and its minuses. It's not safe. On the other hand, it puts everybody on their toes. I mean, to face that straight out and not be either cowed or, maybe to find a place where one is not reactive to it. You really have to be fairly impeccable. And very few people were able to be impeccable enough to be free of that reactivity.
Well, the only way we got rid of them was to accept it and not react.
Well, I never stopped reacting. It took me 4 years.
As a group, consciously. Excuse me?
You're not talking about the heart rate. There are autonomic reactions that are very hard to stop. But you can focus the mind to the point where you don't react. It's true.
That was the only way, was to go rise.
You see, there's been a transformation happening here from the very architecture up. I mean, originally, the buildings were designed not to last. I mean, that was the intention. Because you had to put your karma yoga in, because the idea was it shouldn't get too comfortable. Because if you get too comfortable, you forget. And so that notion of safety, I think, was built in to be out, not in. And what I've seen happening over the last few years is, wait a minute, we can't live that way. We've got to make it safe. We've got to get our foundations down. We've got to make the building concrete. Because people no longer can deal with that kind of uncertainty. But on some level, the very nature of the spiritual pursuit is to throw yourself in the arms of uncertainty. If you want it safe, how can you be a spiritual seeker?
It is what it is, and it is that from this I have become something new. And the idea that something's wrong because you're learning from it is counterproductive. So what this discussion is pointing out to me is simply that the group, as a group, once again has to learn how to listen to using issues for growth. That's all. And you, in terms of what you hit upon in your reactions, are grist for the mill. You are, part of the manure pile of creating the next leap. And that's okay.
I think
Guardian, I'd like to sit for 2 minutes on the subject
I think the accountability, whatever that means to each person, can be put in place so that they're not so at risk and they're not reacted against, but rather they're worked with in a more complete way. So I just want to say those two things that are surfacing seem to be part of the current cycle maybe that they're talking about. Here comes this male energy again. What are we going to do with it?
So I'd like to propose for membership of the Board of Trustees, Shireen, Sadiq, Jamil, Sal, Asha, and Marianne to serve until the next annual meeting. To serve until the next annual meeting.
Our mother, we live upon her.
I'm gonna get some food. Well, maybe we'll do. Oh, I thought you liked it. Well, maybe we'll do them both. Oh, please.
Blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you. May God's presence illuminate your hearts now and forevermore.
Let's hear it for the Yapatah.
All right.
Yeah.